use our money.
Ask anyone what they think most people argue about in marriage, and you can guarantee one subject comes up over and over again.
Money.
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 I think they tend to argue a lot about money, I would think.
It's not money in itself that causes the problem, more people's attitude towards it. And clashes come when couples have differing views on how to approach the whole area of their finances. Before Nigel and Lizzie got married, they both assumed that Nigel would organise their finances because that's what both their fathers had done.
On the course, we were encouraged to look at who would be the best person to do each role, and when it came to managing finances, we realised that actually Nigel wasn't that good at it.
No, so we decided in the end to break with tradition, and Lizzie would do all the finances.
There's a saying that failing to plan is planning to fail. And I think if we planned more and we were wiser and better stewards of what we had, then it wouldn't create the problems that it does. Debt is at record levels. Credit card debts, for example, have increased fivefold in the last decade, and the average debt is now a third higher than the average income. Incurring debt can put a great strain on a marriage. Admitting there's a problem is the first step to recovery. That's what happened to Julianne. Her compulsive spending nearly cost her her 10-year marriage to Rick.
It got to the point where I couldn't even make the minimum payment on a credit card my husband knew nothing about. So one evening I had to just come clean about it, and I could tell he was just devastated. He never thought that I would lie to him, and that's what it was lying. And it hurt because I never purposely set out to be deceitful about finances with Rick.
Two things here. The first thing is to talk about it with your partner, because by and large most partners will be very supportive of you in that situation, and don't let it drag on because it'll just make it worse. Secondly, if you do not feel that between the two of you you're capable of dealing with this matter, then go to the Citizens Advice Bureau, go to see an independent financial advisor and ask for some help. Really, just getting even help from friends or family will start you on the road to solving the problem. What you mustn't do is bury it.
The first thing I had to do was make a decision is, do I want to keep my marriage? And what am I willing to do to keep it? And finances is something that I could control, how much I spend and how much I tell my husband, and that I don't lie to him. And the second thing was accountability and letting Rick know what's going on. He didn't want to lord over me or control me, but he would like to know if we don't have enough money to buy something, tell me we don't have enough money to buy something. So that was the second thing we did. And the third thing is we called a credit card company and asked them to lower our credit line to $300. You can do very little damage with that. And over time, here I am, and I can be trusted with a maximum credit card because I've matured, I've grown up, and I've made a decision that it's not worth it to lose my marriage.
In discussing our finances, we found it's helpful to talk about our feelings. Does money fascinate us or bore us? Does it make us feel anxious or confident, or excited or guilty or out of control?
The aim in marriage is to develop a dynamic partnership. This requires honesty about the present, including the state of our finances and our feelings about money.
It requires encouraging each other and forgiving each other for mistakes we might have made in the past. And it requires an agreement about how we'll organise for the future.
We want you now to look at the exercise in your manuals discussing your finances. Spend a few minutes filling in your answers and then discuss what you've each put. And we're going to give you 10 minutes.
We're going to look now at how we resolve the ways we hurt each other.
We asked people in the east of England how important they think forgiveness is in a relationship.
How important is forgiveness in marriage?
It's very important. Forgiveness in marriage is what makes it go round, really.
I think it's important, otherwise marriage won't work. So compromise and forgiveness, yeah.
I would think that forgiveness is very important in a marriage.
Forgiveness is absolutely crucial in any marriage.
Yeah, absolutely crucial, because everyone falls, everyone betrays others, even those they love, and to keep the communication effective, you have to learn to forgive.
I think it's absolutely essential. I think marriage is a compromise, and inevitably there'll be things that go wrong, and parties need to move on if they want to remain married, and yes, they will have to forgive or compromise in some way or other.
Forgiveness in a marriage is very important. Absolutely 100% important. I think you need to be able to forgive each other to, you know, keep things going and stuff.
Everyone makes mistakes, everyone does things they shouldn't do, but if you're prepared to commit yourself to somebody, then yes, I think that obviously, unless they've done something absolutely terrible, I think you should forgive people, yes.
If you're not going to forgive, it's not going to last, really.
Anything that I would say is unforgivable.
No, I think most things are pretty forgivable.
Well, I can only obviously speak from my experience, and my experience, I would say no.
Unless you kill them or something like that.
Of course, constant infidelity is unforgivable, and uncleanliness.
you got to say sorry. You just have to. Yeah.
In marriage, it's inevitable that we'll hurt one another in different ways, and usually not deliberately. Often it will be the result of some conflict between us. And that hurt must be healed if our marriage is to flourish.
There's a simple but powerful process for healing. Of course, there are different levels of hurt, and the bigger the hurt, the longer it takes for the trust to grow again.
But we've seen this process bring healing for very big hurts as well as for small ones. As Scilla said, it's a simple process, but it is challenging.
The process has three parts to it. First, identifying the hurt. Secondly, saying sorry where we need to. And then thirdly, forgiving.
The first part, then, is identifying the hurt. We must be prepared to tell our husband or wife when they've upset us. That'll be much harder for the hedgehogs amongst us to do.
But I know that even rhinos can retreat into sulks and silences. If we try and bury our hurts in the hope that they'll go away, it won't work.
If any little thing creeps in between you and you don't bring it up and deal with it quickly, then it can become a major issue. And so I think that's important.
Having a sort of agenda of things that you're talking about as we go along.
Probably, but I wasn't even thinking as an agenda. I was just thinking if there's something that comes in and that's getting in the way, then it's important to share it and talk it through.
If our husband or wife doesn't know why or how they've hurt us, they'll tend to do it again, and our resentment will increase.
The second part of the process is learning to say sorry, and we'll have to say it often. Our pride can make sorry the hardest word to say in the whole world, particularly to our partner.
But a home where a husband and a wife are willing and able to say sorry to each other is a very liberating place to live. It opens the way for talking about the issue and brings the possibility of change.
The third part of the process is forgiveness. Every marriage needs forgiveness at its heart. Forgiveness is the greatest force for healing in a relationship.
Forgiveness is facing up to what has hurt or upset us and then choosing not to hold this thing against our husband or wife.
I needed to learn that early on in our marriage. When we first got married, I thought that our love for each other would automatically resolve any conflict or any hurt between us. I couldn't imagine that we'd need to say sorry and forgive each other. I still remember vividly the time about 9 months into our marriage when we had one of our big rows about money. Nikki said a few things about my spending habits that really upset me. We were going away for a special weekend together that we'd planned for ages, and then there was all this tension between us. I kept trying to pretend that everything was fine, but it wasn't, and it was really ruining our weekend.
I remember I kept asking Scilla, "What's the matter?" And she kept saying, "Nothing," trying to pretend that everything was all right, but I could tell that it wasn't. Eventually, Scilla did pour it all out to me. And when I understood why she felt so upset, I was able to say sorry for hurting her like that.
I then realised I had to say out loud to Nikki, "I forgive you." And that felt really strange, and actually I found it very difficult to do. But I did say it between gritted teeth, and I remember the immediate difference it made. The resentment just went very quickly, and I found that I wasn't nursing the self-pity anymore.
We went on to have a great weekend, and we found ourselves able to discuss the money issue in a new way.
I learnt that weekend that I had to tell Nicky why I felt hurt, and then choose to forgive him. I now know it's better to do it a lot sooner than I did then.
So, to sum up, forgiveness is not pretending that the hurt doesn't matter, denying it or burying it and hoping it'll go away.
We don't want to make it sound like forgiveness is easy, because it's not.
It's hard to forgive because we have to give up something of our sense of justice and what we regard as our rights. We have to give up our self-pity.
It helps to recognise that forgiveness is something we have to choose to do as an act of our will, even though we still feel the anger, the hurt and the resentment. The author Philip Yancey once wrote, "The word resentment expresses what happens if the cycle of blame goes uninterrupted. It means literally to feel again. Resentment clings to the past, relives it over and over, picks each fresh scab so that the wound never heals."
Sometimes, when we've been hurt deeply, forgiveness has to be a process. We have to go on forgiving, sometimes on a daily basis. And every time the memory of the hurt comes back to us, we have to let go of the feelings. And as we do so, the memories have less and less power over us.
As the Bible puts it, forgiveness means keeping no record of wrongs.
The Christian understanding of forgiveness is that just as God has forgiven us freely, we must forgive each other freely.
If we're able to say sorry and to forgive, we will heal the ways we've hurt each other and build intimacy at the heart of our marriage.
Now it's time to introduce our guest couple, who are Peter and Lisa. They met at school when they were teenagers, and they've been married for 5.5 years.
Welcome, Lisa and Peter. Now, in this whole area of conflict, where do you two come in the spectrum of the rhino and the hedgehog?
Well, I guess if I think about myself, I'm definitely a rhino. For me, holding on to issues and hurts and stuff like that is kind of like holding on to a hot coal. And I just want to try and release it, get it out there and deal with the situation, really.
I'm the opposite. I'm a hedgehog. And so when Peter confronts me and says, hey, this is this and this and this, I kind of just go, oh, and want to crawl into a little tiny ball and retreat. And he says, what's wrong? And I say, nothing. and the typical hedgehog kind of behaviour.
So, over the years, what have you done about it?
I guess one of the main things for me is to try and focus on the issue, try and attack the issue and not the actual individual, the person. I know we're both pretty hot on not using those labelling phrases like, you always and you never. I have to admit the odd often or frequently creeps in there, but that's something we try and eliminate out of the argument altogether.
Yeah. And has your family background affected the way you handle conflict?
Yeah, definitely. Peter comes from this really happy family, very together, his parents both together. My family was just as happy, but in a different way. My parents got separated when I was very young, and so I think for me, I was really, really scared of conflict. I've never seen it sort of resolved in a positive way, and so my biggest thing to learn when we first got married was that if we had a fight, it was okay, and Peter wasn't just going to leave. And his commitment to me, when he said, till death do us part, he really meant it. And so, yeah, my biggest thing was just realising, actually, he's committed and he's going to stay here, and it will be okay to have arguments and fights.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Now, we looked earlier at those 6 different steps for resolving conflict. You've already talked, Peter, about the not labelling. Are there others of those steps that have been particularly helpful for you or important for you?
I think for me, the first one, when you say, hit the pause button, I know that after about 10:30, I become absolutely incoherent and really emotional and things like that. So if something comes up, an issue comes up, almost guaranteed I will react in a really inappropriate way or just get really angry. So even just saying, actually, let's talk about this tomorrow, is a really important thing, because then I'm much more rational. Yeah.
So you use the 10 o'clock rule, or is it 9 o'clock, or 8:30?
Kind of depends on the day we've had it.
Yeah, yeah, daylight savings and that kind of thing as well comes into play. But I know it's a good judge of sense of humour as well, because jokes that were kind of funny before 10 o'clock were not very funny afterwards.
And with this whole area of conflict, how important has forgiveness been to you in your marriage?
Well, I think over the last 5.5 years, it's been really key. I guess what we've come to identify is that it really does pay to deal with the issues as they come along, kind of thing. Because rather than storing them up, saving them up, because otherwise you're dealing with the tidal wave that's been developing over the last kind of days, weeks, even years. And so that's been really good for us, I think.
I think also for me, forgiveness is really conscious effort. It's, you know, when you have an argument and you say, I forgive you, then it's the next time you have an argument, which seems very similar to the last time. Yes. It's not bringing that up again and sort of biting my tongue and not saying, well, last time you did it and last time you did that. Because each time I do that, I think it gets less and less, and the hold that has on me becomes less and less every time I choose not to bring it up again.
Now, if you could give one piece of advice to all these engaged couples, what would it be from your own experience?
I guess the tip would be don't treat your marriage like a block of cheese, which is a little bit weird, but it's
Can
like...
you explain that?
If you neglect a block of cheese, that goes kind of like mouldy and crusty, I suppose. And I guess the thing behind that is it takes a lot of energy and practice to learn these good techniques of how to have a good marriage. And the more energy you put in, the more you will get out.
Peter and Lisa, thank you so much for coming to join us. We recommend that you spend some time doing the homework in your manual for this session, as it'll help you to put into practice those 6 steps for resolving conflict that we looked at earlier.
It's amazing when we start to listen to each other's point of view and look for solutions, how this brings us closer rather than pushing us apart.
We're going to have the next reading from the Bible now. And this one is perhaps the best known of them all. It's taken from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 to 8.
Love is patient.
Love is kind.
It does not envy.
It does not boast.
It is not proud.
It is not rude.
It's not self-seeking.
And it is not easily angered.
It keeps no record of wrongs.
Love does not delight in evil,
but rejoices with the truth.
It always protects.
Always trusts.
Always hopes.
Always perseveres.
Love never fails.
I'm going to end this session with a short prayer. Thank you, Lord, that you are so patient and so kind towards us. Thank you that you forgive us. Please fill us with your love. Help us to keep forgiving each other throughout our marriage and to keep no record of each other's wrongs. And we ask this for Jesus' sake. Amen.
We look forward to seeing you at the next session. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.